COVID-19 has exposed various shortcomings in our systems. But in the face of such a pandemic, it is very critical to have a concerted approach in order to help Wakenya. And in regards to this, I just want to bring on board Jerry Say, who is a humanitarian and development specialist, but also the brains behind Humanity Kenya. And she'll tell us a little bit of what Humanity Kenya really does intend to do. Jerry Say, thank you so much for making time. Welcome to News Center.
Thank you. Good morning, Jesse. Good to see you. It's been a few months since we've been together.
Quite so, indeed.
Yes. Thank you.
Let's start with the basics. I mean, where exactly was the genesis of this particular initiative? When did it become clear to you and the organization as well that you had to do something?
Well, Jesse, first of all, before I even talk about Humanity Kenya, I want to say thank you for sharing that story, the first 5 minutes of the show. So heartening to see practical action on the ground. And I wish that team all the best. And I hope that whoever is out there who can continue to support the initiative does so. Now, for Humanity Kenya is not an NGO. It's not a foundation. It's actually the name that has eventually occurred to me in the process of running what started off as an ad hoc cash transfer initiative. I want to talk a little bit about cash transfers. Cash transfers is the other side of vouchers and food distribution and so on and so forth. Cash transfers is simply saying when somebody comes or is faced with a crisis, one of the immediate things that they do require is cash. And although I 100% support food distribution, commodities distribution, vouchers, and so on, I've come to find out over the years that cash is one of the quickest and most dignified ways to assist families in need. And with the COVID crisis striking us as rapidly and seriously as it has, this has been one of the ways to reach out to families. So what started off as just reaching out to a particular family that was just asking for 150 shillings to buy unga has turned into a much bigger initiative. We are at about 3.3 million shillings raised now and more than 1,500 families reached. And these cash transfers are either 2,000 shillings or 4,000 shillings. We know that this is not enough to change someone's life completely, but what we're doing with cash transfers is building a level of resilience to say, okay, I have food, or I have medicine, or I have paid my landlord a section of the rent that is due, and we will push on. And next week will present its new set of problems, and we shall see how to resolve those problems. So cash is quick, it's efficient, it's cheap, because I was operating until about almost 2 million shillings, this entire initiative from my personal M-Pesa. People send money, we send it out. People send money, we send it out. There are no overheads. This is a pro bono initiative on my part, so I don't make any money from this. This is about only paying the Safaricom Kutuma charges and making sure that money gets into the hands of those who need it as quickly as possible.
I think the importance of cash transfers also boosts the local economy as well. But as we talk about this, I'm sure there are Kenyans back at home who actually can offer a helping hand, but they well know that the government had put in place cash transfers as well, a cash transfer program to alleviate those in need, especially during this pandemic. Many weeks into the pandemic, how effective would you say about this promise by the government, and why should Kenyans actually go out of their way to also help? The importance of a concerted approach.
Jesse, you know, anyone who follows me on social media will see that I'm a pretty sharp critic of the government, especially with regard to socioeconomic dimensions of its COVID response. I believe that a biomedical response is critical because, of course, this is a biomedical pandemic, but the side effects of lockdowns, of curfews and so on are socially felt, economically felt. And so one of the things I have tried to push and ask the government is to say, you know, if you do have the resources, and we know the COVID fund has about 2.7 billion shillings that it has raised, why aren't these funds getting where they need to get? We understand that 10 tons of food a couple of weeks ago were released to be distributed in Mukuru Kwanjenga. And we heard as of a couple of days from one of the other stations that these foodstuffs had not yet reached the people in need. So my biggest challenge to the government is you have the infrastructure. You have the resources. Why are you waiting simply for well-wishers and philanthropists to stand in the gap for you when you have a constitutional mandate and responsibility to take care of your citizens? So my gripe is that many of us, and it's not just myself doing cash transfers or others doing food distribution, it is a whole range. It is churches, it is individuals, everybody helping, their mamamboga, their kiosk owner around the corner. Everybody is reaching out to help others need. Your Ndudi drivers who you use to riders who you use to deliver goods are not working. Everybody is desperate, from those in formal employment to those in the informal economy. And still, I do not see a quick enough reaction and response by the government. So when the government tells people to socially distance, to stay at home, to observe curfew, but does not have a commensurate plan to ensure that there is cash in people's pockets, that there is food, that utilities are free to the extent possible, then you have a situation where the government's plan to control COVID is not consistent with the realities on the ground. And this is what we are seeing. People are suffering. The messages I receive, the desperate cries for help. Is this really a country that is humane, a government that cares for its people? I do not think so. I wish the government would go ahead and complete its cash transfers, complete its food and commodity distribution. Then those of us who want to assist would be auxiliary, we would be ancillary, we would be helping, not the ones front and center on the front lines supporting those in need.
And I mean, you say the point that we're all feeling the brunt of COVID-19 and the pandemic's social economic disruptions are even, but mostly low-income families are mostly affected due to this, the families that might survive from hand to mouth, as we commonly refer to it. But when we see evictions happening, case in point, Kariobangi, Ruai, it really casts a shadow on the effectiveness of the government, especially during this pandemic time. But tell us the challenges, especially, that might come with cash transfers and also, providing alleviation to these families that are truly in need.
First of all, with the demolitions that you have just made reference to, I underscore again my appeal to the government that it must be people-centered, absolutely and 100% in terms of its planning when there's an emergency. When there's a humanitarian emergency, cards are off the table. You come with a new set of cards and you say, what do we need to do to preserve life and to keep people as comfortable as possible? When you talk about the lower income families, I would also say even the middle class families, or those who we refer to as middle class, are also suffering. They're feeling the cash crunch. But you're absolutely right that it is those who have the kadogo economy, the hand to mouth economy, that feel the brunt immediately. So if we're into 60 plus days of the COVID response, you can imagine how many nights of those have been spent by families without food and now without shelter when you look at evictions. Now, to answer your question about cash transfers, in my opinion and my professional experience, is one of the quickest and most efficient and cost-effective ways to pass money on to people in need. But yes, you are right. It comes with challenges. Even Humanity Kenya has had its fair share of individuals who have tried to either behave like brokers and approach a poor mama so-and-so in this and that area and say, look, nitakusaidia namba yako na namba yako, and then they come and then they open a Twitter account, because I have been using my Twitter direct message as the way to receive requests from people. Why? Because it was still an initiative that was run 100% by me, using my Twitter account, using my phone, using my M-Pesa line. So I found along the way that there were those brokers who had appeared, and as I called and investigated and checked up on those who had received 2,000 shillings or 4,000 shillings, a few of them admitted to me that they had to pay 200 shillings or 500 shillings back to the so-called broker. So I had to come out again in public and underscore that this is an unconditional cash transfer. Nobody is a broker. Nobody is a middleman. Yes, I do have community mobilizers who have referred people to me. And those people, I have their names, their IDs, their profiles in the community. They may not be government employees, but they may be connected to a CBO, a self-help group somewhere, or just well-known in their little town, in their little village where they are. And there are some of the people who have referred individuals to me. So yes, there are challenges, and every time there's a system, you will always find someone trying to game the system. But as I go back to the government, where I lay all responsibility, the government has the infrastructure to verify, to double check, to go door to door to door. Cherotich, Humanity Kenya does not have that, but we do what we can with the little we have. But I also say that with my many years of experience in the field, I'm able to quickly weed out those who might not be telling the truth. But by and large, I would say we have had 98 cents on the dollar in terms of effectiveness of the transfer, where the only cost accruing to this is the 2% or so, which is the kutuma, which is our statutory, or we have to pay those deductions back to Safaricom.
Speaking of doing the little we can, I mean, Kenyans can actually plug in their support to those who are able during this pandemic. How exactly can we do that? Not necessarily through Humanity Kenya, but through other organizations as well. Take us through this.
Exactly. You know, it's not just Humanity Kenya that is doing cash transfers, for example. Maybe there are others out there. There's so many. There's my friend, for example, who's looking at how to increase support for families who are homeless as a result of the demolitions and evictions. You have Team Ancash, you have so many church groups, you have resident neighborhood associations that have come together to support. I think every single Kenyan, and at this point I would be remiss not to mention the diaspora. The diaspora has been phenomenal. We know that the diaspora remits billions of shillings every year to Kenya and Kenyans for development and so on and so forth. And in this particular instance, even for Humanity Kenya, 45 to 50% of all that we have raised has come from the diaspora. So the diaspora out there is seeing looking for initiatives that they can plug into with the limited resources they have, because they are also impacted economically by COVID, and they're reaching out and helping. So it is food, it is vouchers. 3 individuals sent me bonga points, and I think I have about 205,000 bonga points, which I will convert into vouchers to give to families in need. So in any single way that any Kenyan sitting out there believes that they can help, that 50 shillings, that 100 shillings, that 10,000 shillings, those bonga points, the vouchers, every single thing counts. And what is very important when it comes to giving is giving quietly, giving humbly, giving efficiently, and keep moving. And I have also been a very sharp critic of those who flaunt their donations and use visibility as if this is a political campaign. It's not politics. This is humanity. So wherever any single Kenyan is today saying, I have an extra 150 shillings that could buy unga somewhere, look for an initiative if you don't already know somebody directly that you can assist. So Humanity Kenya is just one of the many vehicles, and I extend my thanks to every single Kenyan who has entrusted me with their shillings, the big shillings, small shillings, all of it. We have to also be accountable, and Humanity Kenya has proven itself to be 100% accountable. And every 4 or 5 days, every week, I report back to the public via Twitter to say how the funds have been spent. So really, there's an opportunity for everyone to do something to help his or her brother and sister in need.
Definitely, and exactly what the Bible says, what the right hand gives, the left hand shouldn't know. Let's take a look at the pattern shot. To authorities, to Kenyans as well, what message would you give right now? Bearing in mind we have 21 more days of this, curfew, cessation of movement, if we can call it that way.
My parting shots are many, but I will come with this. I would ask the government of Kenya to style up, to rapidly come to its senses and understand that curfew after curfew after curfew extension simply results in the death of more Kenyans than what corona would potentially kill. I believe that corona is a deadly virus that we must pay attention to, and we must identify, treat, isolate, and so on. But if you focus on that, as the government is doing, without looking at the needs of men, women, children on the ground, then you will not have achieved the objective. So the government must style up. The government must become multidisciplinary. The government must call multiple stakeholders to the table and encourage them to provide that support, assistance, and advice. We are here. Take it from us. We are ready to help you. This is an opportunity where we can all pull together for Kenyans. And ultimately, people must always be at the center of any response. So I urge the government to style up.
Well said. I can't add any more. Jerotich Say, thank you so much for your time, humanitarian and development specialist, especially through Humanity Kenya. 1,500 families approximately are actually getting the elevation they so need through Humanity Kenya. And remember, there's so many other ways you can actually contribute. Just take a look at who and where you can actually do that. Thank you so much, Jerotich Say. All right, we'll definitely focus on even other developing matters in regards to the COVID-19.